What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Nerdy Mark channel. I am Sid the Nerdy Mark, and today, it's time for our review of Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame is directed by the Russo brothers once again, and it stars pretty much everybody in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this movie does take place right after the events of Avengers Infinity War, where Thanos, just like he promised, did wipe out half the population, therefore balancing out everything as it should be, perfectly balanced, whatever. And now it is, of course, up to the Avengers, the remaining Avengers, the original Avengers that kind of started it all and whatnot, to basically go and find the Infinity Stones to undo the devastation and chaos that Thanos left in his wake. Now, of course, a lot of hype was surrounding this movie just because, especially after the events of Infinity War, leaving a bad taste in people's mouth just because, Thanos wiped out half the entire universe, or the entire planet. So, obviously, Endgame, everything rested on this film. Everything rested on Endgame. And, this movie would either give us the closure that we wanted, or it would just leave us even more devastated. That's kind of what I was really worried about when I was going to go see this movie in the theater. But with that being said, though, let's kind of just dive right in, talk a little bit about some of the things that I liked about the movie, some things maybe that I didn't like, whether I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down, somewhere in the middle. Let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Avengers Endgame, non-spoiler edition. So let's get this out of the way. I absolutely loved this movie. This was really good. I enjoyed every single bit of it. I thought it was fantastic, from the technical aspect to the story, pulling on our emotional heartstrings or whatnot. Everything was just fantastic about this movie. So I was just really happy about it. I'll be honest, I barely took any notes for this movie, so I'm going to kind of just talk from the heart a little bit. It's been about 24 hours since I watched the movie, but I still remember it. It's still fresh in my mind. And I'm going to kind of just talk about whatever, as much as I can, minus spoilers, of course, because I do have a spoiler review coming out next week. So maybe this may be a little bit of a shorter video. So starting out with some of the pros, obviously, one of the obvious things was all the performances in this movie. I just loved that the characters in this film had actually an extra layer to them. Like every single character, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Black Widow. I felt just because this event really has, devastated everyone. And then Thanos is out in his farm relaxing and having a good old time. The repercussions of his actions are felt by the Earth's mightiest heroes, and you can see that every single person is definitely very much broken by this. And I'm not talking about in a good way like Matt Hardy was, but I'm talking about like they are emotionally just devastated, and they're like, my goodness, we couldn't stop this guy. Now like half the people are gone. So again, the sense of dread was still there. All hope is lost kind of feeling was still there. So that was good. I'm glad they kind of kept it like that for the beginning of the movie, and then of course obviously towards the end it became a little bit more hopeful. I think that was one great thing with the characters. I felt everyone just had a lot more to do here, like in the sense that everyone had a lot more emotion here into the characters, and like I said, that definitely added an extra layer of character development to all of them. Without getting into spoilers, there are some characters that are left with a huge mental scar of this event. So and also they do still try to get a little bit of comedy out of it whenever they can. Because it is a Marvel movie at the end of the day. But I think it also kind of shows that even in the most trying of times, you do have to sometimes look at a silver lining. There's a line in this movie by Captain America, and this is not a spoiler, but Captain America does, he's kind of like that. He tries to look at the bright side of things, and there's an exchange between him and Black Widow in this movie where he tries to do that. So, it was cool. I liked that. Another thing that I loved was all the references, because, this movie is, and I think this is not a spoiler either. I know I keep saying this is not a spoiler, it's not a spoiler, but it's not. There is some time travel in this film. I don't want. That's all I'm gonna say. But I think they do have a lot of references to, like, Back to the Future and Terminator and Quantum Leap, among other time travel related films. There's even a huge reference to The Big Lebowski in this film. So again, you'll see what I'm talking about when you watch the film. But no, there weren't too many action scenes, which is, I guess, kind of a nitpick, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about that a little bit in my cons, which personally I don't think there really are many. They're just mainly nitpicks. But I'll talk about that in a minute. I mean, whatever action scene they did, again, they filmed it very well. It was choreographed very nicely. It was great. It was just great to see that. I love the fact that this movie was actually very unpredictable, because me personally, among many other people, I think had a certain theory about how this movie was going to end or how this movie was going to play out. But I felt that the Russos really took it in a direction that was completely different, but also extremely satisfying. This movie is literally just 3 hours of satisfaction, to be honest with you. Like, that's kind of what it is. Speaking of the 3 hour time limit, this movie did not feel like 3 hours. The pacing was really good. It slowed down a little bit after, like, maybe the first 20 minutes of the movie. It slowed down just a little bit. However, it quickly picks back up around the second hour, and of course the third hour, is where it just goes into hyperspeed. But the pacing was just very well paced. It started from slow pace to a little bit more faster, and then finally just kind of a little bit more balls to the wall action. Towards the climax of the film, I really liked that. That the pacing was just gradually became faster. So that was really cool. But those are just some of the things that I really liked about this film. So let's talk about some of the cons in this film. I wouldn't say there are any like big issues in this movie. I would say there are just a little bit of nitpicks here and there, because at the end of the day, I actually really love this movie. And I'm not saying it just because of that. I think that, even Infinity War I had a couple of nitpicks with it, but that's okay. I mean, remember, I'm a fan first and a critic second. This is just my critic side talking. There are some issues I had with the film. Again, nothing too big, but I guess we'll talk about it. One of the things that I was a little bit confused about, obviously, was the whole concept of the time travel. Now, time travel is a very delicate subject and also a very delicate thing to meddle with. And a matter of fact, many of the people in this movie say that, hey, time travel is nothing to be messed with. And that's kind of a universal law of nerddom, that, you don't mess with time travel. Yet, we have people like The Flash and now all the Avengers messing with it all the time. Now, I think the way they explored time travel was very similar to that of Back to the Future, where I think time travel was more or less kind of just reliant a little bit on cinema at the time. So the time travel aspect in Back to the Future is not exactly like, I wouldn't say it's like the best way to explain time travel. Obviously, anything that you do, if you change anything in time, obviously it will, have a ripple effect on your future. But I mean, the way they kind of explain it, it's still very, very confusing to me. I wish they kind of did a better job of explaining that. Another thing, I guess, is, I mentioned this earlier, but there weren't enough action scenes, in my opinion. I think, because in the beginning, it was a little bit slower towards the beginning of the movie. Maybe an action scene there would have picked it up. But again, I understand why there weren't too many action scenes. They do want us to focus more on the plot than on, any fighting. And by the way, the action scenes are done really well overall, like I said. But I just wish there was at least one more. I think it would have just been nice. But, that's really, again, a really small detail. I don't really think it was anything that took away from the movie. Again, the pacing was fantastic, like I said. But yeah, even when I'm talking about cons, I have to go and praise this movie because it is a very praiseworthy film. I really, really enjoyed it. But I don't really know if there's anything else that I really had too much of an issue with, to be honest with you. I guess maybe I don't know. I don't think I have too much to really talk about in this film, other than this just a couple of nitpicks here and there, really. And I mean, of course, if you guys had any, you can leave them in the comments. But as far as I'm concerned, I think this was fine. But again, those are just some of the nitpicks that I had. So overall, I thought Endgame was a fantastic conclusion to the whole Thanos saga. I think it was fantastic. This is exactly how I wanted it to end. I think that a lot of characters, like I said, got the closure that they needed. I think a lot of big things happened in this movie that sets the path for future Marvel films, which I do feel that there are going to be more, and this is not the last ever Marvel movie and whatnot. But I know this review was a little bit short just because I really I actually did record my spoiler review yesterday with, because I did go with to the theater with, a friend of mine, and me and her, we actually recorded the review together. So, I mean, I'm pretty much said all I had to say about the movie, but if I had to do a spoiler-free review, this is what I had to say. But, I really don't have much else to talk about about Endgame or Infinity War for that matter. Fantastic conclusion to the Thanos saga. Looking forward to see what else we have for the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the coming future, in the coming years or whatnot. But as far as the rating goes, I think you guys kind of already know it, but I am giving Avengers Endgame 2 thumbs up. So that pretty much concludes my thoughts on Avengers Endgame, at least the non-spoiler thoughts. I will have a spoiler-filled discussion next week or this coming weekend, depending on when I get it out. But please do not post any spoilers in the comments below. I highly implore you. # don't spoil the Endgame. At least not on this video. You can do it on my spoiler discussion. But anyway, you can go ahead and leave your thoughts on the film in the comment section below. But of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on social media and tell your friends about the Nerdy Mark. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. This is Sid signing off. You guys take care. Bye-bye.